She didn't wear shoes, not in winter, not tonight. She stood barefoot on the warped hallway planks, folding warm towels with cracked hands while the cold leaked through the seams in the old house like something alive. Her fingers moved like they belonged to someone else, fast, careful, practiced. The skin along her knuckles was red and swollen, the nails bruised at the beds. A breeze whispered through the boards and tugged at the hem of her dress. She blinked once, then again. I folded another towel. The front door slammed shut like a gunshot. Heavy boots scraped over the rug. "You could have died," Lorna said. The girl didn't flinch, just folded another towel. Lorna stared at her. "Did you hear me?" "Yes, ma'am." "And I don't feel cold." "You don't feel cold," Lorna repeated, voice flat. "What are you saying to me? With your damn feet on bare wood?" The girl shifted her weight, but said nothing. Lorna walked closer, looked her over, saw the frostbite blooming pink above her ankles, the raw skin on her fingers. She wore a thin cotton dress, sleeves barely holding. "You're shivering." "No, ma'am. You're shaking so hard I can hear it." "I ain't. You don't gotta lie in this house." "I'm not. You think I can't see you?" "I think I'm fine." Lorna tilted her head. "Have you always been this stubborn?" The girl folded one last towel. "Don't know." Lorna squinted at her. "What's your name again?" "Marley." "How long have you been here, Marley?" 3 months. "Have you ever asked for anything?" "No." "You think that makes you strong?" The girl didn't answer. Lorna stood still for a moment, then turned without a word. She disappeared through a narrow blue door near the stairs. It groaned on the hinges. Dust moved in the air like ghosts. Marley watched the door, folded her arms tight across her chest. One of the towels fell to the ground. She didn't bend to get it. Footsteps came back slowly. Lorna carried a quilt folded in her arms like a body, thick, heavy, black thread running over hand-stitched cotton, verses sewn in each square. It smelled like cedar and memory. She stopped in front of the girl. "Take it." "I can't." "You can and you will." "It's not mine." "It's mine." "I know." "I'm giving it to you." "I don't need it." "Then you're stupid." "I'll wash up and get warm." "Wrap up now. That ain't a suggestion." The girl hesitated. Her fingers hovered over the quilt. "It's too nice." "It was my mama's." "Then I really can't." "She made it for me before she passed. Said it'd keep me warm when no one else would." The girl's eyes softened. "That's not for me then." Lorna pushed it toward her. "She didn't say I had to keep it. Just said don't give it to someone who'd let it rot." "I won't." "Then take it." Marley reached out slowly like the quilt might bite. She held it close to her chest, hugged it like she didn't know how to. "Have you ever had something that warm before?" "No." "Now you do." The girl nodded once. Her lips trembled. "Not from the cold." "Go on, get off your feet. Sleep while you can." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just use it right." The girl turned and walked toward the back stairs, the quilt still pressed against her. Her steps were quiet, her head low. Her bare feet left small prints on the floor. Lorna watched her disappear. She didn't move for a long time, just listening to the silence grow thicker. She leaned against the wall, one hand over her mouth. Later, long after the fire died down in the parlor and the embers hissed in the dark, Lorna sat alone in her chair with a glass of untouched water. The air in the house had gone still, heavy. Shadows reached for her from the corners of the room. The lamp flickered once, then held steady. She didn't look at the clock. "I didn't need to." She closed her eyes. The dream came fast. It always did this time of year. She stood in the churchyard, black gloves on her hands. No casket, no flowers, no face to remember. Just dirt, wet, packed, freshly turned. They said her sister slipped, said it was fast, no pain, said it was over before anyone could have helped. But in the dream, there was no slipping, no accident, just the sound of breath caught and held, and then dirt. The hole was too shallow. The bell rang once, then silence. She called out. No one answered. She woke up with her hand clutching the armrest. The glass of water hadn't moved. She stood, knees cracking, and walked the hall barefoot slow. The wood was cold, the kind of cold that crawled up your legs. She stopped at Marley's door. She didn't knock. She just stood there, ear near the frame. A sound, software faint, a tune. She didn't breathe. It was a lullaby, but not from a radio. Not from any station, not from memory. At least not the kind most people carry. This one came from before From the barn in summer, from when Lorna was 10 and her sister hummed it while brushing hay off her shoulders. From a time before, silence swallowed them all. She pulled away from the door. The hallway was darker now. The wind had died. The girl kept humming. And Lorna, for the first time in years, didn't feel cold. She just felt watched. Lorna didn't wait. She turned the knob and stepped into the room like it still belonged to her. The humming stopped. Marley sat on the edge of the cot, blanket around her shoulders. The fire in the corner stove crackled low. One of the quilt's edges dragged the floor. Lorna stared at her. "Where'd you hear that?" Marley blinked. "What?" "That song." Marley shrugged. "Nowhere. It's just a tune." "That's not just a tune." "I made it up." "No, you didn't." "Yes, ma'am. Been in my head a while." Lorna stepped in, closed the door behind her. It latched with a slow, dry click. "That song's not yours." "I didn't mean—" "Don't lie. Not tonight." The girl looked down. "My grandma hummed it sometimes, I think." "You think or you know?" "I'm not sure." "What was her name?" "She never told me." "She raised you and never gave you her name." "She wasn't talkative." Lorna leaned against the dresser, her arms crossed tight. "Where was this?" "Not far." "Be specific." "A county over." "What county?" The girl shrugged. "They just called it the Ridge." Lorna let out a breath. "Your grandma, does she ever talk about church?" "She said they came for her once." "Who?" "Men, in uniforms." But she hid, under the root cellar. "Was there a barn?" The girl blinked. "Answer me." "There was a barn." "Loft upstairs?" "Yeah." "Rope swing?" "Yes." "Carvings in the beam?" "Birds," the girl whispered, "and the word stay." Lorna sat on the cot. Her knees cracked as she lowered. The quilt shifted between them. "I carved that word." The girl's lips parted. "What?" "I was 10. My sister was 17. She used to sing that song up in the loft. She'd tell me not to fall asleep, said the dust could eat dreams." Marley held the quilt tighter. "Your sister, is she—" "She disappeared 20 years ago." "Disappeared?" "Fell. That's what they said. Into the well. But they never found her body. Just a dress. A smear of blood." "Oh, she used to sing that song. That exact one. Word for word." "I didn't mean to—" "I'm not mad." "You look mad." "I'm scared." The girl looked up. "Of what?" "Of whatever brought that song back." Marley said nothing, just stared at the stove. Her eyes didn't blink. Lorna could see the reflection of the fire dancing in her pupils. "Did your grandma ever show you any papers?" "No, ma'am." "Old letters?" "Burned, most of them." "Did she say who your mother was?" "She said she wasn't allowed to say her name." "Why?" "Said it was cursed." Lorna stood. Her legs shook a little. She pressed her hand against the dresser to keep steady. "Stay here. Don't leave this room." "I wasn't planning to." "Don't hum. Don't talk to anyone. Not even the walls." "The walls?" "You'll know what I mean if they answer back." Marley nodded, slow. "Where are you going?" "Out." "Now?" "Yes." "It's midnight." "Exactly." The girl pulled the quilt up to her chin. "Be careful." Lorna didn't reply. She left the room and shut the door without another word. She didn't stop to put on a coat. The truck groaned as it turned over. She backed down the gravel drive, headlights off. She didn't want the house watching her leave. The town was 20 minutes away, but the road felt longer. The trees leaned closer. The air tasted like iron. She pulled up outside a trailer at the edge of the river. A busted cruiser sat out front, tires flat, siren crusted with dust. She knocked hard. No one answered. She kicked the door. "Holt, open up!" A light came on. The door cracked open. Sheriff Holt stared out, hair wild, shirt half-buttoned. "You better have a good reason." "I need a name." "Of who?" "The girl I hired." "Are you finally checking her references?" "I need birth records, quietly." He rubbed his face. "You been drinking?" "No." "You look like hell." "She sang the song, Holt." "What song?" "The one from the barn." He stepped back. "Come in." "Number just get me what I asked for." "You don't think I've tried?" "What?" "I ran her prints 3 months ago. Nothing. No ID. No school records." "Why didn't you tell me?" "You didn't ask." "Jesus." "She's a ghost." "Or she's not." He stared at her. "Lorna." "I think she's her child." "Whose?" My sisters, that's not possible. She sang the song. That doesn't mean she carved the birds. What birds? The ones I carved. Holt leaned against the doorframe. You sure you're not dreaming this? She knew the word. Stay. She said it. He was quiet. I want records. Birth, death, property. Anything from 20 years back. Look under Faith. That was my sister's name. I remember. Then help me. I'll try. No one can know. They won't. She started to leave. Lorna. She stopped. You think she remembers? I think someone does, whether it's her or what's inside her. The wind picked up. Something creaked behind the trailer. Do you ever think she didn't die that well? Holt asked. All the time, Lorna said. She got in the truck and drove back with the lights off. The sky above was black but restless. Something waited in the dark. And Lorna, for the first time in years, didn't feel alone. Sheriff Holt sat in his truck under the old pecan tree at the edge of the pasture, a flask resting on his knee. His cruiser was parked beside the ditch like it wandered off. The engine still ticked. He didn't bother killing the lights. Smoke from his cigarette curled out the open window. Lorna pulled up behind him, left her headlights off, and stepped into the cold without a coat. The gravel cracked under her boots. You're late to your own funeral, Holt said, not turning. You've been drinking. Like always. She walked up beside the truck. I need the files. Already looked. They're gone. Gone how? Like someone made them disappear. 20 years ago. She lit a match on the truck's bumper, held it up, stared at the flame. She's got my sister's face. Holt took a long sip. You buried your sister. Number I buried a lie. You stood right there, Lorna. I watched you throw in the rose, and you stood there and said nothing. He finally turned toward her. His eyes were tired. What do you want me to say? I want the truth. Truth's a snake. You step on it, it just waits to bite later. She sang the song. I know. She knew the word I carved. I know. You never told me. You never asked. She slammed her hand against the hood. Don't you play that game. I told you what your daddy paid me for. Lorna froze. The words hung there between them like something rotting. What did you say? You heard me. She reached into the cab, grabbed him by the collar, and yanked. You told me she slipped. You said you saw her fall. I lied. You said she was dead. You swore on your badge. I was young. I was scared. He threatened my mother. You let me bury a stranger. I let you bury silence. She slapped him hard across the cheek. The flask dropped, rolled under the seat. You bastard! I didn't kill her. Number U just erased her. She was already gone. Nobody, no name, just address. You wanted it over. You begged me to say it was an accident. I was 17. So was she. Lorna stepped back. Her breath came fast, sharp. Her hand trembled at her side. Holt rubbed his jaw where she hit him. Blood touched the edge of his mouth. She was pregnant, he said. Lorna stopped breathing. She came to me the week before she vanished, told me someone hurt her, someone powerful. Who? She wouldn't say. She told me everything. Not this. Lorna shook her head. She said if anything happened, it wouldn't be an accident. And you said nothing. I wrote it down. He reached into the glove box, pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellow, with age. Lorna took it, opened it slowly. Her sister's handwriting, slanted, frantic. If I go missing, don't believe what they say. The child is real. He's got the ring. If you love me, burn the house. Lorna's lips moved, but no sound came. I thought it was a joke, Holt said. Or a breakdown. She was 17. Your daddy had plans for her. She wanted to leave. Take me with her. She said that? Every night. They stood in silence. She's alive, Lorna whispered. Holt exhaled smoke. Or she left something behind that remembers. The girl, Marley, she dreams things. Says names she couldn't know. He looked out across the pasture. Where's the well? She asked. Behind the old cotton field. Is it sealed? Number just. Forgotten. I want to see it. Now. Right now. He tossed the cigarette, put the truck in gear. Gravel spat out behind the tires as they rolled slowly toward the back acres. The trees grew denser. Fence posts leaned inward like listening. Lorna stared out the window. Have you ever thought about turning yourself in? Every day. What stops you? No one left to punish me. That's not true. I mean alive. You think silence forgives. Number I think it forgets. I didn't. I know. They drove in silence until the woods broke open into a clearing. The moon hit the overgrowth. Vines had strangled the pump handle. Rust bled down the stone. Lorna stepped out. I walked up to the well. No sound, just wind. She touched the stones. Cold. Damp. This is where you said she died. I did. And you let them bury a name, not a person. I was a coward. You still are. I know. Lorna peered into the dark mouth. Do you hear that? She asked. Holt stepped beside her. What? Breathing. There's nothing down there. There was. She dropped the match. It kept falling. She never heard it hit. Lorna walked across the back field just after sunrise, breath sharp in her chest, crowbar in one hand, flashlight in the other. The barn sat heavy against the frost, half swallowed by shadows. Its roof sagged. Vines crawled up one side like they wanted to pull it underground. She hadn't opened that door in over 20 years. Her boots sank into the soft ground as she approached. The padlock was still there, rusted, bloated, shut tight. She jammed the crowbar between the clasp and yanked. Hard. The metal screamed. The wood cracked. She pulled again. The lock snapped and fell to the dirt. The doors opened slowly. A breath of cold hit her, wet and chemical. The air inside was wrong. Earth, bleach, something beneath it all, the smell of something buried too long. She stepped inside. The boards moaned beneath her weight. Light fell in thin lines through the slats, cutting the dust like knives. Everything was covered in a skin of silence. Hay in the corner, the old swing rope, broken tools lined the walls. Half a rake, a shovel with dried dirt still on the blade, a pile of nails in a rusted pan. She walked toward the far stall, the one no one had touched since that night, the one they said was empty. Her light caught something under the hay, 2 corners of rotted leather. She dropped to her knees and brushed the straw aside. Her fingers hit metal, a trunk, warped, heavy, old. She opened it. Inside were boots, one still caked in dried mud. The other was clean, pristine, like it had never touched earth. Lorna's stomach tightened. Her sister's boots, she remembered them from the photograph in the hallway. The one her father took. Faith in her white dress. Those boots on her feet, the night she vanished. Underneath, wrapped in torn oilcloth, was a folded note. The paper was brittle, water-stained, edges browned. She opened it with shaking hands. If she comes back, she's mine? No name, no date, just those words, slashed in a heavy hand. She knew the handwriting. She staggered back. Her chest burned. A voice came up in her throat, uninvited. He said it. Her father. She'd heard it once in the hallway, years ago. She's mine, always was, always will be. Lorna dropped the letter. Her head spun. She grabbed the edge of the stall to stay upright. The barn creaked around her, the wind pushing through the cracks like breath. It sounded like whispering. She turned. The doorway was darker now, and someone stood in it. Marley, barefoot. You shouldn't be in here, the girl said. Lorna's voice was hoarse. Why not? Because that's where she died. The words landed flat, cold, like they'd been said before, like they'd been waiting to be said again. Lorna stepped forward. What did you say? The girl didn't blink. She died here. You don't know that. I do. How? She told me. When? In my sleep. That's not the same as knowing. It is for me. Lorna backed toward the trunk. What else did she say? She was afraid. Of who? She said he found out about the baby. What baby? The girl looked at the boots. You know. No. You do. Lorna gritted her teeth. Why are you saying these things? Because someone has to. Don't speak in riddles. Tell me. She said she tried to run. She packed the boots. She waited up in the loft. But he followed her. No one followed her. He did. She left. She didn't. She went north. I took a bus. That's what the sheriff said. He lied. I saw the ticket. He planted it. Lorna turned back to the trunk. Her hands gripped the sides like they could hold her together. I was supposed to go with her, she whispered. I know. She told me to meet her at the creek, but Daddy said she left without me. He said it because he made her leave the only way he knew how. No. Yes. Lorna turned to Marley. Why are you saying this? Because the barn remembers. That's not possible. She waited here. That night, she kept the light off. She didn't cry. She just waited. How do you know? I dreamed it. Then stop dreaming. I can't. Lorna stared up at the loft. The rope still hung from the beam, motionless. She slept up there sometimes, Lorna said. Before it happened. She was waiting that night. I should have been with her. She knew you couldn't come. She told me to come. She told you to survive. Lorna moved to the ladder. Her hand hesitated. Then she climbed, one rung at a time. Each one creaked under her weight. The loft was smaller than she remembered. The hay is thin. Sunlight filtered through the broken panel at the top. She crawled toward the far corner, where the dust was thickest. Something sparkled in the straw. A necklace, cross-shaped, twisted. Her sister's. She picked it up, held it to her chest. Below, the girls stood still, watching. Lorna whispered, "Why did no one hear her?" She didn't scream. Why? She knew it wouldn't matter. Lorna came down slowly. The ladder shuddered. Her boots hit the ground. She stood in front of Marley. Tell me more. She had a name picked out. For the baby? Yes. What was it? The girl paused. Lorna. Lorna's face fell. She said it was the only thing in her life that didn't hurt, Marley said. Lorna put the necklace in her pocket. She looked around the barn, slower this time. The boards, the beams, the rot. She died here, Lorna said. Marley nodded. Lorna's hand went to the wall. The boards were warm. Software. She walked out of the barn and didn't shut the door behind her. She let it swing open. Let the air move through. Let it breathe. The barn creaked low in its bones. Dust hung in the air like breath caught between words. Lorna didn't speak right away. She leaned against the stall gate, arms crossed, watching the girl standing still in the center of the room. Have you been here before? Lorna asked. Marley shook her head. No. You sure? Not really. Do you remember anything? No. You look like you do. I just get feelings. What kind? Like I'm supposed to cry, but I don't know why. Lorna stepped away from the wall. Come here. The girl walked slow, eyes scanning the beams like they meant something. Have you ever seen this barn? Lorna asked. I don't think so. Have you ever seen these boots before? Lorna pointed to the trunk. No. They were hers. I know. How? I just know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I got. Marley walked to the back wall. She put her hand flat on a board near the corner. What are you doing? Lorna asked. There's something behind this. It's a wall. No, not just a wall. You feel it? Like it's humming. Lorna walked over. I looked at the grain of the wood, the edges. Something felt off. Slight gap near the base, like it had been pried once before. She grabbed the crowbar, jammed it between the slats, pulled. The wood cracked, then gave. Dust fell in clumps. Behind it, an old cavity in the wall, just deep enough for a child to reach into. Lorna pointed her light inside. A small drawing sat there, taped to the back. Paper faded, edges curled. She pulled it out. The drawing was done in colored pencil. 3 girls in dresses. One had yellow hair. One, red, the third, had no face. Just an empty oval. The others smiled. This one didn't. The paper shook in her hand. She showed it to Marley. The girl stared at it. Her eyes welled. She touched the faceless one. That's my mama. Lorna looked at her hard. Who told you? No one. Then how do you know? I just do. You said your grandmother raised you. She did. You said she never talked about your mother. She didn't. So how do you know this is her? I know her sadness. Lorna turned the paper over, a name scrawled faintly on the back. Faith. Marley stepped back like it burned her. You okay? The girl didn't answer. Lorna moved closer. Have you ever seen that name before? Marley nodded. In a dream. What was happening? She was holding me, but her face was gone. Just light. Did she say anything? She said I never died right. Lorna's throat closed. She said she's still waiting. For what? To be named. The barn groaned. Lorna dropped the drawing. We need to get out of here. No. It's not safe. She's not angry. How do you know? She's tired. Lorna took Marley's hand. Come on. The girl didn't move. She used to hum, Marley said. Low. All the time. Like she couldn't stop. She did. You remember? Every morning, even when she cried, she hummed. She passed it to me. You never met her. I don't think that matters. Lorna sat on the stall rail. I looked at the girl. Really looked. Your eyes, she said. What? They're hers. I'm not her. I didn't say you were. Then why are you crying? I don't know. Marley picked up the drawing. I folded it. Hold it to her chest. She said she wanted me to have a name. You have one. It's not the right one. Lorna stood. We need to talk to someone. Like who? The sheriff. He already knows. Lorna paused. What did you say? He knows she didn't die right. He told you that. No. Then how? I just know. That's not good enough. I'm not making it up. I didn't say you were. Then why don't you believe me? Because I lived this. I buried her. No, you didn't. Lorna stared. You buried a story, Marley said. Not her. Lorna turned away. You sound just like her. Maybe I am. Don't say that. Why not? Because I can't lose her twice. The silence thickened. I think I used to play here, Marley said. You said you hadn't. I don't remember it in my head. Then how? My feet. What does that mean? They know where the floor creaks. Lorna's voice dropped. You're scaring me. I'm scared of me too. The wind blew through the cracked door. The light shifted. The loft above creaked. She's not gone, Marley said. No. She just got stuck. Where? Here, between. Between what? Names, places, people. Lorna took a long breath. Are you hungry? No. Are you tired? No. Then come with me. Where? Somewhere warm. Marley nodded. As they stepped into the cold, the barn door drifted shut behind them. No wind. No hand. Just closed. Lorna didn't look back, but Marley did, and she whispered something Lorna couldn't hear, something meant for someone else. The gates didn't shut behind them. They never had. Not at the governor's house. Gravel cracked under the truck tires as Lorna pulled into the long drive, headlights off. The sky washed out above them, pale and indifferent. The house rose like a memory too big to forget. White columns stained gray, shutters closed like eyes pretending to sleep. Marley sat quiet in the passenger seat. She hadn't spoken since they left the barn. Lorna parked beneath the trees, engine still running. You don't have to come in. The girl opened the door without answering. The porch creaked under their weight. The bell didn't work, so Lorna knocked. 3 short, then 2 more. Footsteps. A chain slid back. The door opened. Maven stood there, thin, deliberate, dressed like mourning and had a uniform. Her hair was pinned back so tight it looked painful. Well, Maven said, you look like hell. And you look exactly the same, Lorna replied. Death doesn't age you. I'm not here for condolences. You never were. Maven looked at Marley. Is she yours? Something like that. Then come in. They stepped over the threshold. The air inside was still, heavy, smelled like paper and old soap. The same rug, the same chair, the same house that made Lorna a wife, then a widow, then nothing at all. No coats on the banister, Maven said, already walking. Lorna didn't remove hers. She followed Maven down the long hallway, past portraits of men who'd signed laws and broken daughters. The walls whispered power, but the kind that bruises instead of protects. They stopped at the parlor. Maven turned. Tea. I'm not thirsty. Suit yourself. Lorna stepped in front of her. You took her. Maven blinked. Who? You know who. We took nothing. She disappeared, and then months later, you had a child in this house. She was born here. To who? Maven tilted her head. To your sister, in silence, in shame. Lorna's breath caught. We helped, Maven continued. We gave her a place. Better than what she had. You hid her. She wanted to hide. You could have called me. She said you were too young. You'd follow her into the fire. I would have. Maven nodded. Exactly. They walked up the stairs, slow. Every step creaked. Marley followed, quiet as shadow. At the top floor, Maven opened a narrow door. The attic. It hadn't changed. A window near the ceiling cast soft light over rocking chairs, boxes, quilts no one claimed. Dust glowed in the beams like ghosts still waiting to settle. She was up here for months, Maven said. Refused the nursery. Said she couldn't stand the color. What color? Blue. She wanted a girl. She knew it was a girl from the first kick. The rocking chair swayed on its own. Marley stepped back. She cried so quietly, Maven said. I thought she'd be deaf. And my sister, Lorna asked. She screamed louder. Lorna touched the windowsill. It was warm. She died in the barn, Lorna said. Maven's voice didn't change. She never left this house alive. Lorna turned. Then who went to the barn? No one. You're lying. I'm too old to lie. You covered it. Maven looked at Marley. She has her hands. I know. And her silence. She's not silent. She hears things others don't. Lorna stepped forward. You took her from me. We gave her life. You buried my sister. We tried to bury shame. You buried the truth. Maven's lip twitched. Same thing in this county. Lorna looked at the girl. What do you remember? Marley walked to the rocker, touched the armrest. The light came through the slats in the roof, like fingers. There were no slats, Maven said. There were, Marley whispered. She held me here. She wrapped me in something. It scratched. A quilt, Lorna said. Black thread. My mama's. She said it was stitched in blood. Lorna felt the floor tilt. Maven turned away. This conversation is over. No, Lorna said. She died here. In pain. No, Lorna said again. She died alone. She begged for silence. We honored it. You erased her. We raised her child. Then say her name. Maven paused. Faith. Lorna flinched. She said if the baby made it, name her Lorna. No, Lorna whispered. She wanted you to raise her. Then why didn't you let me? Maven looked away. Your father. Lorna's hand balled into a fist. He made her a ghost, told the papers she ran off, said she was touched. We couldn't fight him. You didn't try. We fed her, sheltered her. I held her hand while she screamed. And then? She bled out in the night. In this house. In that rocker. Silence. The air pulled tight. Where did you bury her? Lorna asked. Not here. Where? The barn. You said she never left alive. She didn't. He moved her. Who? Maven looked her in the eye. Your father. Lorna stepped back. Her breath shook. She's under the floorboards. We never opened the barn again. Lorna looked at Marley. The girl stood still, hands at her sides. I remember the blood, Marley said. It dried in my hair. No one told you that, Maven said. I told you. Maven turned. Take her and go. I will. She doesn't belong to you. She doesn't belong to anyone. Lorna turned to Marley. Let's go. The girl nodded. As they stepped out of the attic, the rocker stilled. No breeze, no hand, just quiet. Maven watched from the top of the stairs. She loved you, she said. I loved her back, Lorna answered, and she closed the door behind her. This time it was locked. The house was too quiet. Lorna stood in the kitchen staring at the stove. The kettle had been whistling just moments ago. Now it hissed low like it had lost interest. She set the towel down. Something was off. Off in the kind of way you only feel in your teeth. She turned and walked through the hallway, slow at first. She passed the open parlor. The clock ticked. No sound upstairs. Then faster. Marley. Nothing. Marley. She took the stairs 2 at a time. The girl's door was open. She stepped inside. Empty bed. Open window. No shoes. No note. Marley. She spun and threw open her own bedroom door. The blanket sat on her bed, folded, perfectly, centered like someone meant for it to be found. She stepped closer, laid her hand on it. It was warm. Still warm. Her chest tightened, not from the cold. She backed out of the room and went downstairs. The front door is still locked. She checked the back. Deadbolt slid shut. Still, she was gone. And the blanket was warm. She opened the window. The air hit her like a slap. It smelled like ash, like fire, like old smoke, the kind soaked into quilts and sorrow. She knew that smell. Wood smoke. Not from her stove. Not from the neighbors. It came from across the ridge. From the old land. Her family's land. Her father's. She grabbed the truck keys and left the door open. The tires skidded against gravel as she took the old road east, the one grown over with tall weeds and gilt. Her headlights caught trees leaning into the path like they knew what she was doing, like they'd seen this before. Halfway up the ridge, the truck stalled. Too much mud. She didn't wait. She climbed out and kept walking. The trees thinned, the graveyard came into view, and the fire, low in the center, contained but bright, like it had been waiting for someone to see it. The graveyard was older than memory. Stones leaned, names faded. A fence once circled it, but now sagged in 3 places. The land felt crooked, like it tilted toward the past. Marley stood barefoot at the edge of the fire, still, silent. Lorna walked across the cold grass. "Marley," the girl turned. "I saw her," she said. Lorna stepped closer. "Where?" "In the well." "What?" "Down there." Her hands were open. Her eyes were too. "You dreamed again." "I didn't sleep." "Then you walked." "I don't remember walking." "You came here on purpose." "She called me." Lorna looked at the fire. It burned clean. No smoke now, no heat. "She's real," Marley whispered. "I know." "She doesn't hate us." "She should." "She doesn't." Lorna turned toward the graves. "Did you see where she was?" "I followed the light." "What light?" "The one behind my eyes." Lorna crouched at the edge of the fire pit. Her hand hovered over the coals. Still warm. "Who lit this?" "I don't know." "You brought matches?" "No." "Gasoline?" "No." "How'd it start?" "I sat down. It started on its own." Lorna stared at her. "You expect me to believe that?" "No." "Then why say it?" "Because it's true." The girl stepped closer. "She told me her name." Lorna stood up. "You already knew it." Number this time she said it herself. Lorna nodded, slow. "Say it." "Faith." The fire popped once. "She said I was born in silence, but I carry her voice." Lorna swallowed. "She said she remembers the blanket." "What blanket?" "This one." Marley pulled it from under her arm. Lorna hadn't even noticed her holding it. "She carried it through the woods." The girl said. "She said she held it the night she died." "That's not possible." "She said it was the only warm thing left in the barn." Lorna took a step back. "I gave that to you." "She said you gave it to her first." "No, that was—" "She said you folded it, placed it at the foot of the ladder, that you waited for her to come down." Lorna's hands shook. "She never made it down," Marley said. Lorna looked toward the trees. "She was climbing when he grabbed her." Marley added, "No. He dragged her back." "You weren't there." "She remembers." "You're not her." "She knows." Lorna turned away. Her breath caught. "She said you're the only one who called her name when everyone else buried it." Lorna closed her eyes. "You didn't believe she was gone," Marley said. "I still don't." "Then go where she stopped." "What?" "She wants you to finish it." Lorna turned back. "I don't know how." "You do." "I don't." "She said carve the name." Lorna stared at the grave nearest the fire pit. "A flat stone. No carving." "She's here." "Yes." "This one?" Marley nodded. "She said no one ever marked it. She said it didn't feel real. She said she's stuck." Lorna dropped to her knees in front of the grave. "I was afraid," she whispered. "I know. I couldn't say her name. She already heard it." Lorna placed her hand flat on the stone. "It's cold." "She said that's okay. She can feel your hand now." Lorna closed her eyes. "She said she misses the sound of your voice," Marley whispered. "She always said I talked too much. She liked that about you. I used to talk to her about leaving." "She remembers." "I never did." "You stayed." "I shouldn't have." "She doesn't blame you." Lorna opened her eyes. The fire was out. The sky had gone full black. No stars, just the warmth in the stone under her hand, just a blanket folded beside her, and a girl who remembered what never happened. The fire in the graveyard had burned out, but its heat clung to the ground like memory. Ash curled around the stone. The blanket was folded again. Always folded. Lorna sat cross-legged in the dirt, hands in her lap. Marley stood at the edge of the pit, not blinking, not moving. "She said it wasn't painful," Marley whispered. "It was something worse." Lorna looked up. What did she mean? She didn't scream, not when he grabbed her. Who grabbed her? Marley's voice flattened. The man who said she owed him silence. Lorna stood. "You saw this?" "I didn't see it. I felt it. In my legs. Like being pushed." "Pushed where?" Marley didn't answer. She just looked at the grave. Lorna stepped closer. "Tell me." "I felt cold. Not from water. From something underneath it. Like fear. Like the ending." Lorna nodded, slow. A man. A push. A prayer before drowning. She wasn't praying to be saved. What then? To be remembered. Lorna felt her stomach turn. She told you that? I told myself that, but it feels like the truth. Lorna turned away. The trees blurred at the edges, the fire gone, the warmth fading fast. We don't bury women like that, she said under her breath. What do you mean? We bury them like they asked for it. Lorna didn't wait. She left the graveyard without another word. Back in the truck, the keys shook in her hand as she turned the ignition. She drove fast, hard, wheels sliding on gravel. She didn't stop when she hit the paved road. She didn't breathe until she reached the edge of the property where the cotton field used to be. The well sat where it always had, half hidden by brush, overgrown, forgotten by everyone who wanted it forgotten. She stepped out, left the engine running, walked across the field with her flashlight and the old crowbar. The lid covering the stone circle was cracked, the hinge broken. She yanked it open. It smelled like rust. She leaned over, shined the light down. At first, just black. Then something caught me. A glint. She lowered the rope ladder that had been tied up on a hook, climbed down slowly. Her boots hit stone. The air was damp and tight. She moved the jury light. There, in the corner, a rosary, wrapped in red string. She crouched. I picked it up. The beads were dull, but the string was fresh, tied too neatly for an accident. Her breath caught in her throat. She heard the whisper like a breeze under her skin. If I go missing, check the string. She was 14 when her sister said it. They were sitting on the porch. It was just after their father slammed the door and before the sheriff came by, pretending nothing had happened. Faith had leaned close, whispered it like a joke, but her hands were shaking. If I go missing, she said, check the string. Lorna gripped the rosary tighter. She climbed out of the well with stiff legs. The truck headlights caught someone walking up the road. Sheriff Holt. His face looked wrong in the high beams. Not older, just emptied out. He stepped beside her. I ran the DNA, he said. She looked down at the beads. Didn't speak. It came back 2 hours ago. Still nothing. She's hers, Holt said. The girl. Lorna nodded. She's yours too. She turned. What? She's not just Faith's. Lorna's jaw locked. That's not possible. Twins, he said. The word hung there like smoke, thick, bitter. No, she whispered. Faith gave birth to 2 girls. She would have told me. She couldn't. You're saying one of them got buried, the other didn't. No. You were told the baby died, but one lived. Lorna shook her head. Where's the second? She's standing in your house. No. She's yours. Lorna stepped back. No. She's both of yours. Silence. The air pressed down on them. Lorna's voice cracked. Why would no one tell me? Holt looked at the well. Because you weren't supposed to know. Who made that choice? You know who. Lorna stared at the rosary in her hand. She always said we were alike. She whispered. We felt things the same. Finished each other's thoughts. She never told me. She didn't need to. She wanted to name the baby after you. I remember. She did. She did, Lorna repeated. The wind stirred. She waited, Lorna said. She did. Lorna closed her eyes. Her hand gripped the rosary so tight the string cut into her palm. I thought she left me. She didn't. She left something else. She left someone. Lorna opened her eyes. She's both, she said. The girl. She's her and me. Holt nodded. She carries it, Lorna said. All of it. She's the end of a silence. Lorna turned to the well. We don't bury women like that, she said again. Not anymore. Lorna dropped the rosary back into the dark. It fell and didn't make a sound. And for the first time, she didn't need it to. The drapes caught fast. The flame ran up the velvet like it had been waiting. Lorna didn't move as the fabric shriveled, just watched. Smoke poured from the seam like breath held too long. She struck another match and dropped it into the curtains across the room. The flame took without hesitation. The girl stood behind her. Are you sure? Marley asked. Lorna didn't turn. This house never saw us. The flames jumped to the ceiling trim. The wallpaper cracked. The air turned orange. She moved from room to room. The parlor, the sitting room, the library is full of untouched books and untouched memories. She lit each corner with steady hands, each spark catching like it knew where to go. The house groaned. Everything in here kept us quiet, Lorna said. Marley stayed by the stairs, blanket folded in her arms like it didn't belong to either of them. I never saw her cry in this house, Lorna said. Maybe she didn't. No, she did. She just did it in the attic. With the windows shut, they moved upstairs. Flames followed. Shadows snapped against the walls. The attic door was open. Lorna stepped inside, the heat already pooling at the ceiling. The rocking chair still faced the corner, unmoved. She lit the quilt that draped across its arm, the black threaded one, her mother's. It burned slowly. The stitching held. The words curled last. "I thought it'd feel like revenge," Lorna said. "What does it feel like?" the girl asked. "Like a final breath." She turned. The fire spread behind her. Marley stood by the vanity. It hadn't been touched in years. The mirror was missing. "What was here?" Marley asked. Lorna stepped closer. "A mirror. They took it down when she died." "Why?" "Because she said it showed too much." The girl ran her hand across the wood frame. Her fingers caught on something near the corner, a loose panel. She pulled. Behind it, a folded paper, yellowed, thin. She handed it to Lorna. Lorna opened it slowly. A birth certificate, 2 names listed. Mother, Faith T. Harlan. Father, child, Lorna May Harlan. A line drawn through it. Underneath, a second name written by hand. Marley Faith Harlan. Lorna's knees gave. She sat on the floor. "She tried to name her after me," Lorna whispered. "She did," Marley said. "They scratched it out. They couldn't erase it." Lorna folded the paper. "Hold it to her chest. This house made her disappear. Every corner, every silence. You brought her back." "I tried. You didn't have to. She deserves someone to say her name. I heard it before you said it." "I know." Lorna looked at the girl. "You were never alone," she said. "I didn't feel alone. You carried her. She carried me." The flames crept under the door. Lorna stood. I looked around. No photos left, no portraits, just fire and wood and memory. She took the birth certificate and tucked it inside the pocket of her coat. They walked down the stairs. The banister crumbled under her hand. When they reached the front door, Marley stopped. "The blanket," she said. Lorna turned. "Leave it. She said you should have it." Lorna paused. Marley stepped forward and handed it to her. Lorna touched the stitches, the black thread, the soft cotton worn from 2 generations of grief. She shook her head. "I never gave you this blanket." Marley tilted her head. "Then who did?" Lorna looked into the fire behind them. It moved now like it recognized her. She answered softly. "She did." And the door shut behind them on its own. The town hall was silent, packed with the weight of years. Lorna stood at the back, her hand on the door, her breath steady. Marley stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes down. It smelled of dust and betrayal, the kind that settles in the floorboards and won't leave. Lorna stepped into the room. Every chair was filled. The old wood creaked as she crossed the floor, the door shutting behind them with a thud. The crowd shifted, uneasy, waiting. The mayor, seated at the front, was watching her. His face was tight, but he didn't say anything. Neither did anyone else. Lorna cleared her throat. "I don't need to waste time," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "I'm here because you all know something I've known for years. My sister didn't die the way you said." A murmur ran through the crowd. The mayor shifted in his seat. Lorna didn't pause. "She didn't slip," she continued. "She wasn't lost in some accident. You buried her without a name, and you buried the truth with her." The room was still, no one speaking. It was the kind of silence that always feels like a lie, too loud to ignore. Lorna looked at the mayor. His eyes darted around the room, avoiding hers. She stepped closer to the front. "You all let it happen," she said. "You stood by and let my sister suffer, let her disappear, and then you buried her like she was nothing." The mayor finally spoke, his voice low. "This isn't the time, Lorna. We don't—" "No." Lorna's voice was firm. "Now is the time. You've hidden behind your lies long enough. It's time you all hear the truth." "You don't know what you're asking for," he said, his hands shaking slightly. "There are things you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she shot back. "You knew. You watched it happen. You saw her die, and you covered it up. All of you." She turned, sweeping her eyes over the room. "You were complicit." The room was still. No one moved. Lorna's heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't back down. "Lorna, please," a voice from the back said. It was old Mr. Daniels, his face red. "You don't know what you're doing. We've kept the peace for a reason. Some things are better left buried." Better for who? She asked, her voice rising. Better for you. Better for the town. You don't understand, the mayor said again. If we'd told the truth, it would have torn the town apart. This was for the good of everyone. Lorna's anger flared, but she stayed focused. She looked directly at the mayor, walking slowly to where he sat. For the good of everyone. That's what you told yourself when you buried my sister, when you let her die in silence. You thought you were protecting everyone, but you weren't. You were protecting yourselves. The mayor didn't say anything. He couldn't. I know you thought it was easier this way, she continued, that keeping the truth hidden would make it all go away. But you made the mistake of thinking that the truth would die with her. You were wrong. Marley stepped forward now, her voice softer than Lorna's, but just as sharp. We all knew something was wrong, she said. I just didn't know how deep it went, but I always knew she was someone, not just a secret. The room shifted uncomfortably, some of the older men looking down, others shifting in their seats. The weight of the words hung in the air. Lorna looked around, watching the faces in the crowd slowly start to shift from confusion to guilt. The mayor's face reddened, his hand clenched around the edge of the table. You've done enough damage. Don't you dare accuse me of that. Don't I? Lorna's voice was low. You told me she slipped. You told me she drowned, but she didn't. You knew that, and you let me think about it. You let me carry the weight of that lie. You think it's too late to tell the truth now? The mayor opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. I'm not done, Lorna said, cutting him off. She looked at the rest of the town, her eyes scanning the room. You think I came here to get closure? Number, I came to make you look at what you did. Because if we let this go on, if we pretend it didn't happen, then my sister's death doesn't mean anything. There was a long silence after that, the kind that stretches so thin you feel like it might snap. Then someone in the back, a woman Lorna barely recognized, stood up. She was older, her hands shaking. I never wanted her to die, the woman said, voice cracking. I knew she was being hidden, but I thought it was for the best. For all of us. I didn't know what else to do. None of you knew what to do, Lorna said softly. That's the problem. You all stood by, letting it happen. One by one, people started to speak. The tension in the room shifted, and with it, the truth started to crawl out from the cracks in the walls. Some admitted to knowing, others to suspecting. But all of them were complicit. Each face in the room wore the weight of the secret. As Lorna spoke, Marley stood by her side, her silence no longer oppressive, but solid, like a foundation. She didn't need to say much. Her presence was enough. Together, they revealed the truth to the town that had turned its back on them for so long. Lorna paused, feeling the weight of the moment. The truth was out, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the beginning of something much harder. Is this what you wanted? The mayor finally said, his voice barely a whisper. Lorna looked at him, then around the room. What I wanted doesn't matter. What matters is that it's finally out there. It's finally real. Some people in the room stood up and left, unable to stay. Others stayed in their seats, heads down, their hands clasped tightly. No one knew what to do next. The weight of the truth hung in the air. I've said what I needed to, Lorna said, but you have to live with it now. The truth doesn't go away because you hide from it. It only gets heavier. She turned to Marley. Let's go. Together, they walked out of the town hall, leaving behind a room full of people who would never forget the weight of silence. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Lorna felt the smallest sense of relief. The truth had come, and with it, the beginning of a long, difficult road to redemption, not just for her, but for the town that had buried her sister for far too long. The door shut behind them, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a door that had been slammed shut in anger. It felt like a door closing on the past. And maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something new. Lorna packed her bags in the quiet of her new apartment, the walls bare, the air still. She had told herself she was ready, but when the moment came, the weight of it hit her like the wind before a storm. She was leaving the past, leaving the town that had held her captive for so long. She closed the suitcase, zipping it tight. She glanced around the small room one last time. The bed wasn't made. The table had a few scattered papers. It was all too new to feel like home, yet it was everything she had needed. A fresh start, a blank page. She looked out of the window, past the busy city streets below. The The world was bigger than the one she left behind, but it felt right. She wasn't sure what she'd find here, but she knew it was hers to build. For the first time in years, the weight of the past wasn't pushing her down. Marley had stayed behind. She had chosen to stay in the town, to rebuild. There was too much to fix, too much to heal. She knew her role now. She wasn't just the girl who had been hidden. She was someone who would help the town find a way forward, someone who would make history remembered and not forgotten. Lorna thought about Marley often, every day in fact, her strength, her courage, the way she had stood by Lorna even when everything felt too heavy. But Marley had her own journey to follow, her own path to carve, and Lorna had made the hardest decision of all, to let her go. Lorna grabbed her jacket and walked out of the apartment. The streets of the city buzzed with life. 1,000 people rushed by, each one with a story of their own. She was a part of that now, a nameless face in a sea of others. And that was okay. Her first step in the city was a deep breath, a feeling of liberation that she hadn't experienced in so long. She was free. She didn't have to be tied to the girl who had once lived in the shadow of her family. She didn't have to carry their ghosts with her anymore. She rented a small office space, the kind you can start from scratch. A desk, a chair, some pens, a computer, everything she needed to begin again. The work wasn't easy, but it was hers. She wrote her first proposal, made her first deal, and took her first step toward a future she could control. Each day was a battle, a test of her ability to redefine herself. She'd wake up, get dressed, and go to work. No more hiding behind the silence of the past. She built her life piece by piece. She learned to navigate the world without the weight of family secrets holding her back. Marley, on the other hand, was carving her own future, right there in the town she'd called home. She stepped into a role that Lorna had never expected her to take. The community that had kept its secrets for so long now had to face the truth. And Marley was at the forefront of that change. She worked with those who had supported Lorna's truth, helping to mend the bonds that had been broken. It wasn't easy. Resistance came from all sides, especially from those who preferred to keep the past buried. But Marley didn't back down. She stood firm, unwavering. She had learned from Lorna, from the strength she'd shown in the face of unbearable truth. Marley was no longer the girl who had been lost in her family's legacy. She was her own person, someone who would help the town heal piece by piece. In the midst of the work, Marley took the old quilt, the one that had started it all, the quilt that carried the weight of her family's secrets and Lorna's memories. She took it to the town's new museum, the one that was beginning to tell the story that had been hidden for so long. The quilt would be displayed, a symbol of the past that had been reclaimed. The town needed to remember, and Marley was going to make sure of that. The quilt would tell the story, but Marley would tell her own. The story of a girl who wasn't just a victim. The story of a girl who had found herself, despite everything. Lorna had always thought of the quilt as a burden, but Marley turned it into something else. A legacy that would never be forgotten. It wasn't just about her family. It was about all the forgotten women who had shaped this town, who had carried its secrets, who had been silenced. Lorna's final step toward freedom came in a small office downtown. It was a simple action, a legal form to change her name. She sat at the desk, filling out the paperwork. Her pen moved across the page, writing the new name she had chosen for herself, a name that had no ties to her family's dark past, a name she would build on, free from the shadows. When she finished, she sat back and looked at the paper. The weight of the past seemed to lift, but it wasn't gone. It never really would be. It would always be a part of her, a part of what had shaped her, but it wouldn't define her anymore. She had let it go. Later that evening, after the sunset and the city lights began to blink on, Lorna sat on a park bench. She looked up at the sky, the stars faint against the city glow. It was peaceful. For the first time, she felt at peace. Marley's words echoed in her mind, soft but clear. You were never alone. Lorna smiled to herself. She wasn't alone anymore. The years that had weighed her down, the years of silence, the years of burying the truth, they were gone. She had finally reclaimed her life. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was hers. She didn't need to remember the names of the past anymore. She didn't need to remember the ones who had been lost or erased. The names that had haunted her were no longer her burden, only hers. I don't need to remember their names anymore, she whispered, looking up at the sky. Only mine. The breeze carried the words, soft as a prayer, and for the first time, Lorna felt the weight of the past truly lift. The road narrowed into dirt. then brush. Lorna kept the wheel steady as the truck climbed the slope behind the old cotton rows. Marley sat quiet beside her, hands in her lap, eyes on the trees. "Have you ever been up here?" Marley asked. "Once. Years ago." "With her?" "With Mama. She said there was nothing past the ridge worth remembering." Marley glanced out the window. That's usually where the truth hides. Lorna didn't answer. They parked near a dry creek. The sun hung low. The air smelled like dust and cedar. The trees thinned at the hilltop. Behind them, the world looked normal. In front of them, it didn't. "You sure this is it?" Marley asked. "No," Lorna said, "but I feel it." They walked in silence. The grass turned brittle. The wind died. Then the stones appeared, small, flat, sunken. No names, just rocks pushed into dirt. Marley crouched, brushed away leaves. "There's no writing," she said. "There used to be. My great-aunt told me once, said the men never bothered to carve the names." "Why?" "Because they were women." Marley looked up. "But they lived." "No one wrote that down either." They stood in the center of the forgotten graveyard. 20 or 30 stones. No dates, just presents. "This one's small," Marley said, pointing. "A child." Lorna nodded. "Probably born too soon, or left behind." "Feels like they're still here." "They are." Lorna reached into her coat, pulled out a folded paper, an old hand-drawn map. Her grandmother's, copied from memory. She walked to the far end of the graveyard, stopped at the stone with a crack running down its middle. "She said this one belonged to the midwife," Lorna said. "What was her name?" "She never told me." "She had one." "She had a dozen, none written." Marley sat beside the grave. "Feels like this is where faith should have been buried." She wasn't allowed. Like them, Lorna's hands were cold. She moved to the stone nearest the oak and began digging. Marley helped. Their hands are raw from the dry earth. They pulled up a rusted box sealed with wire. Lorna opened it. Inside, letters, a small Bible, photographs. The women were stiff in the photos, unsmiling, in long dresses. All eyes, all weight. Names scribbled on the back in a woman's hand. Names no one spoke anymore. Marley picked up one letter. "To anyone who finds this," she read. "They took our names, but they didn't take our lives. We loved each other. We fought. We kept each other safe in silence." Lorna sat down, took the letter from her. It was signed, Clara May H. "Do you know her?" Marley asked. "She was my great-grandmother's sister. They said she ran off. But she's here." Marley folded the letter. "They erased her, like they tried to erase Faith." Lorna stared at the stone. "Like they tried to erase all of us." Marley picked up the Bible. Inside were pressed flowers, a folded note, a name, Theodore K. Underneath, paid for the girl's silence, arranged the death. "Who's he?" Marley asked. "Town councilman. I used to come around when I was young. He knew your father? Better than most. He arranged it." "Looks like it." "Why?" "Because Faith got pregnant, and she was supposed to be quiet." "She wasn't." "She tried." Lorna's face tightened. "She went to Mama," Lorna said. "Told her everything. Mama tried to help, sent her away, told everyone she was sick. But she never left. Number she died here. Because of him." Marley closed the Bible. "We should take this to the sheriff." "He already knows." "Then why hasn't he done anything?" "Because this town survives in silence." Lorna stood. "I looked around the graveyard." Her voice dropped. "Every one of them died quiet." "But you didn't." "I was supposed to." "Why didn't you?" "I was too stubborn." Marley smiled. "She said you would be." Lorna walked the row of stones. She didn't speak, just touched each one. "Lorna," Marley said. She turned. "I'm not going with you," the girl said. "I figured. This land. I want to stay." Lorna nodded. "You sure?" Marley looked around. "Feels like it needs someone to remember." Lorna didn't argue. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a knife, and crouched by the first grave. "What are you doing?" Marley asked. "I'm carving her name." "She didn't leave one." "I'll give her mine." One stroke at a time, Lorna cut LH into the stone. When she finished, she did it again on the next one. Then again. Then stopped. Marley stood behind her. "You okay?" Lorna wiped her hands. "Yeah." "You're shaking." "I'm letting go." They stood still. The trees rustled. "I think they hear us." Marley said. "They've always heard us," Lorna replied. "They just never had anyone speak back." She walked to the last stone, the one by the tree. Her sister's. She knelt, whispered something Marley couldn't hear. then stood. Marley held out the old quilt. Lorna took it, folded it tight, laid it over the grave. She never got to keep it, Marley said. She has it now. Lorna turned toward the truck. You'll be okay? She asked. I think so. You'll write the names. I already started. Lorna stepped onto the path. Where will you go? Marley asked. Anywhere quiet. You hate quiet. I know, Lorna said. But this time I get to choose it. She walked away from the graves, the names, the buried weight. The air felt different, not lighter, just known. And sometimes that was enough. Lorna didn't look back. The truck pulled away from the small town with the engine humming softly beneath her, the road stretching out ahead, unfamiliar, open. She didn't feel the weight of the past on her shoulders anymore. The town was behind her now, the house, the graveyard, the years of silence buried in the dust. Marley had stayed, but Lorna had left it all behind. She thought about calling her, but she didn't. They both knew the decision. The city was bigger, louder, but it wasn't that different. Just more people, more noise. Lorna took a small apartment in a building that looked like it could have been forgotten, but it wasn't. It was hers now. The first night, she sat on the edge of the bed, the room quiet except for the sound of her own breath. She could feel the space around her. She could breathe. The next day, she went out to buy coffee. She smiled at the barista. She didn't know him. I didn't want to. For the first time in years, she had nothing but the present. No ghosts, no names to carry, no stories that weren't hers to tell. She sat in the coffee shop, her feet on the cold tile, and looked at the city outside. It was like stepping into someone else's life, but it was hers now. She was beginning again, starting fresh, and it felt like a weight she had forgotten she carried was finally lifted. Her sister's name wasn't haunting her anymore. The past wasn't keeping her from breathing. The weight wasn't gone, not entirely. Some days, it pressed back against her chest, but it was quieter, like it belonged to someone else. The first job she applied for didn't call back, and she didn't care. The second one did. It was a small office, nothing fancy, but it was enough to keep her busy. Lorna made her way through each day with purpose. A life that wasn't defined by the ghosts of people who never got to speak. She called Marley once just to check in. Marley was still in the town, still fighting against the years of silence. But now she was different. She wasn't holding the weight of secrets anymore. She had started helping rebuild the trust in the town, not just with the people who had supported Lorna's truth, but with the ones who hadn't. The ones who hadn't known how to listen. Marley was beginning to find her voice, just like Lorna had. It wasn't easy. There was still resistance. But Marley was persistent. She stood in front of a crowd for the first time, telling the stories of the women who were erased. The women who had carried the town's history in silence, who had never been allowed to speak. Marley was reclaiming them, reclaiming the voices that had been taken. Lorna listened to her voice over the phone. It's working, Marley said, her voice full of conviction. They're starting to listen. You're doing it, Lorna replied, a smile tugging at her lips. I'm doing it for them, for the women who couldn't. Marley paused. For you. Lorna didn't say anything. The silence felt right. They spoke for a while longer, but it was different now. They weren't tied to the past anymore. Their stories, their names, would never be erased again. The quilt that Lorna had given Marley, the one that had been folded and passed down like a secret, now hung in the town's new museum. Marley had made sure of it. The story of the women who had shaped the town, the ones whose names were forgotten, was finally being told. Lorna's family's history was no longer just about silence. It was about strength, resilience, and the women who had been forced to hide. They were finally being remembered. Lorna's heart swelled, but she kept moving forward. She didn't need to stay in the past. She could look back now without feeling burdened. She'd done what she needed to do. She had spoken. She had let go. One afternoon, a few months later, Lorna walked into the courthouse. She stood at the counter and filled out the paperwork. The clerk looked at her. She didn't say anything, just handed her the forms. Lorna signed her name, her old name, and then she wrote a new one. Her name. The weight of the past didn't follow her now. She had no family name to hide behind, no legacy that defined her. She was just Lorna now. No more shadows, no more ties. The process was simple. The hardest part was realizing that this was her choice. No one had made it for her. It was her decision to walk away from the family that had held her captive with its secrets, to choose her own identity, even when the past would always be there, lingering in the corners of her mind. When she left the courthouse, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the streets. Lorna walked slowly, taking in the city she had begun to call home. It was different now. She was different. She wasn't carrying her family's history with her anymore. The weight had lifted, and she had made the choice to let it go. Later that evening, she sat on a park bench, the cool air biting at her skin. She looked up at the sky, the weight of the years finally lifting off her shoulders. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Marley. "You were never alone." Lorna smiled. She didn't need to remember their names anymore, only hers.